In this video, we're going to be looking at the three main types of motorbikes, the advantages and disadvantages of them, and perhaps that'll help you figure out which one suits you best. This one is a fully automatic bike, and it's often referred to as a twist and go. You simply twist the accelerator and she goes. The advantages of this kind of bike are that it's really quite simple to operate. It's very much like a bicycle with the brakes at the front there. There are no foot controls. You've got space for your feet here. You've got space for your storage as well here. This means it's easier to operate, and then when you're in the traffic, you can focus more on the traffic and what's going on around you because you're not too worried about the bike. The disadvantages of this kind of bike are that it's more expensive to rent, to buy, and generally to repair or replace, and you will use more fuel because these automatic bikes very often take a bit more fuel than the semis and the manuals. Also, they're a little bit heavier than the semi-autos, so that can be, for some people, a little more tricky to maneuver the bike. These bikes as well can also be quite heavy, so moving them around, getting them up the curb or into your house can be a little more difficult on these bikes. If you're going to be looking at going off-road or on any dirt tracks or steep hills, inclines, this kind of thing, these bikes are not really that well suited. Now, this bike is a semi-automatic bike, and that means that it has foot controls. It has gears at the bottom there, which you need to move up and down the gears. You also have a foot brake on this side as well, and then there's nothing on the left hand here, nothing for that to do, but you have the front brake here. So she's more difficult to control. That means that you're going to need to work harder when you start off learning to ride this bike, and that might detract from the amount of concentration you have in the traffic. However, this bike is slightly more powerful in terms of you can be in the right gear at the right time, and that can mean that you have more control over the bike. It's also a cheaper bike to rent, to repair and replace, so there's a benefit there in terms of efficiency, cost efficiency. Fuel efficiency, generally speaking, these bikes, as long as you use the gears correctly, are more efficient than the automatic bikes as well. There isn't the storage, the space for your feet or for a pet down here, so that's a little more uncomfortable, a little more tricky for you when you're wearing a skirt, and there is a little bit of space under here, but it's roughly half to a third of the size of the space under the typical automatic bike. This is the XR150. It's a fully manual bike, and the main advantage of that is it looks cool and you look like a real biker when you're driving this thing. The other advantages are that it's got a huge tank, so your range is really far, over 300 kilometers. There's really good suspension on it, very comfortable for driving. There's a lot more power. You can control the power a lot more because you have the clutch and the gears so that you can distribute the power where you want. The disadvantages mainly are that it's a much more technical bike. You need to know how to control it, use the clutch and the gears in conjunction, and it's a little more tricky. So you'll be thinking a lot more when you're driving, and again, that could cause a problem when you're on the road. If you're in the wrong gear, you might even stall the bike and then have a problem starting it again. Around town, it is actually a really good bike and very useful. It's not so heavy that you can't zip through the traffic. It's not so large that you can't do that either. It is a little larger than the semi-autos and the autos, but no real problem. The suspension allows you to bump up and down the curbs nice and easily without worry, so you can park on the curb quite easily. And the difficulty of controlling the bike, that is also one of the drawbacks. So long as you know how to use the gears correctly, you're going to be more fuel efficient on this bike. Combine that with the huge tank and you've got massive range, or you won't have to fill up that often. Now the next 3 videos that are coming up are going to be the automatic, the semi-automatic and the manual. That's where we're going to do a deep dive into the bikes to show you all the features, all the controls, and that'll give you a real understanding and help you choose the correct bike for you. So tune into that next video on the playlist.